John, thank you so much for coming. And I have to say, I can't quite remember where along the line I met John and his wife Anita, but I do know that they became very involved with the Ogmore-by-Sea story. And John was a newly retired geology teacher, and very quickly we appointed him as head of geology for the Ogmore-by-Sea story. And Anita, we got her employed, I think she'd been a history teacher, so she did a lot of the history. So if you know the story, you'll know things that John and Anita contributed to that, which was great. But John's going to come, and he's got a lot to share with us. And John, for those who don't live in the village, you may not know that John has become the volunteer gardener who's taken on the massive challenge of a sloping garden full of rocks down at the village hall and made an amazing job of it. So I want you to give him a big round of applause and come on. Did you want to hold that or stand?
Oh no, just leave it. I probably won't need a microphone.
Oh, you do. We're all deaf.
From the Garrow, I won't need a microphone.
No, we're all hard of hearing. I haven't stayed. I told John how I stole all Don's notes.
Yes, I was a bit worried about that. I'm a bit nervous. Okay, so be gentle with me. Right, and the main reason I'm nervous is because I have such a passion for gardening, which I've had since I was a boy. I'll tell you a little bit of that in a minute. That I have the power within me to bore you to death, okay? Because when I show some pictures up here, I know what I want to say, but if I see somebody looking interested in it, I could easily say, and another thing about that. So I have to avoid that, because we could be here until 3 o'clock this afternoon, right? And you won't want that. In fact, at 12:15, if I see heads nodding, I'm definitely stopping, okay? So, see if this works, yeah? Tending a coastal garden. Well, tending a coastal garden is not a lot different, actually, from tending any garden. The basics are the same, but we are faced with certain challenges here, as you know. Okay, now, I find gardening, always have found gardening, highly therapeutic. And when I looked at this, when Jenny pushed this in my hand some weeks ago and said, don't forget you're on February the 23rd, I looked at it and I thought, wow, okay, there's some serious stuff on here. The time life hits rock bottom. Having a new body part. Getting older every year. Oh, tell me about it. Trying to keep fit. A changing world. And this is serious stuff. And one of the ways I cope with things in life is through gardening. I find it massively therapeutic. And I try and do little and often. And there is me, just to prove that it is me, on the garden as it was last year. And can I say, before we go any further, a big thank you to everyone who's created this garden, because it's not just me. Because those plants, all those plants that you can see there, are all being donated by people in the village or friends.
Just stay where you are, that's fine.
Or friends, and all I've done is put them in. Really, you know, dug it, and the maintenance I keep on it. Okay. No, it's therapeutic for me, it isn't for everyone. Okay? And you may have a garden, or you may have in the past been faced with your garden, and you may feel exactly like that. And to be honest, that could easily be me, couldn't it? Because that looks like the garden as it was, as you'll see some pictures of that later on. So what we have to try and avoid, and it's so easy later in life, that the garden becomes a chore. Do you want to show me a show of hands? How many of you feel your garden is a bit of a chore? Yeah, okay. And shall I be honest, I feel like that sometimes about my own garden as well. Why you don't see me, by the way, down on the hall garden, I call it the community garden, by the way. I don't know whether you picked that on online, and I call it the community garden for the fact that all the plants have been donated by the community. It's not my garden. People say, oh, John's garden. is not my garden. I tell them quickly it's a community garden. So, how do you move on from that if that's the way you feel? Right, this is one of the most inspirational pictures to me that I've ever seen in gardening. When I was a boy, I grew up in the Garrow Valley. Some of you may know that, yes indeed. Pontycumber, Blaengarrow. My father was a miner. He worked long hours. He had very little interest in our tiny little back garden in the back of the terraced house. Spare time he did have, he was tinkering with his cars, that was his first love. So from about the age of 9 or 10, I took it upon myself to clear the garden, mainly because my mother wanted to get access to the washing line. So she was very, very pleased. And then it grew from there. I went to school in the Garrow Grammar School, and then we went to... That's enough now, ma'am, okay? That's enough, guys. And then I went to Ynysaldra Comprehensive, and I used to sell plants to the teachers. I would grow seeds, wallflowers mainly, and then I would sell them on to the teachers. So you see, I've always had this sort of passion for it, really. And the other thing about gardening in the Garrow, or any valley, or even some here in Ogmore, is that you're faced with slopes. Not quite as serious as that, maybe, but I think if the Southeast Asians can do that, you know, I can do that. Now, that's the slope as it is currently, and you can cope with the slope through breaking it up, basically. So driftwood, some quite large pieces of driftwood I have to lug up from the deeps, and the stone. Now the stone, you'll see a picture of the stone later on as it was when the builders left it, and I cursed that at the time, but the stone has proved to be massively useful. As you can see, we're breaking up the slope there. So working with a slope can be also quite advantageous, and I'm going to just show you something to prove that. I've been on the bank this morning. Right, I'm going to show you on this picture here. So, there we are. What do you think? Nice. Well, the picture here shows you what the slope is like. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you see it now? Can you see it better now?
Yes.
Can you see it better now?
Yes.
Yeah, but obviously what I'm doing here in a very silly way is showing you the advantages of gardening on a slope, because it can be advantageous, hard work, but the advantage of being on the slope is that you've got a canvas on which you don't have to be particularly fussy how you plant. You can put tall stuff at the bottom of that bank, small stuff at the top, and you'll be able to see it. Now it's very important to me because the plants I get, and in the summer they come down every day, I never know what's going to arrive. Never know. Some plants I can't even identify. So I just have to push them in, use my experience and push them in where I think they're going to work together and be seen. But I know when I put them in, I know that wherever I put them, they'll be able to be seen, unless something big grows in front of them, because of the slope. So if you have a slope, don't despair. You're probably on some of the best terrain. Believe me.
Yeah.
Right, now you just saw, this is my dog Herbie, and I promised him I would give him a mention. Because the other important thing in gardens, when they get too much, everybody needs help, don't they? And he is my little apprentice, and you can see him there. He gets paws in, and there he is sorting out some strawberry runners for me. He'll be very pleased now that I've mentioned it. And he's got in this one as well. Now the next thing, we talked about slopes being a problem. The other thing that you have to bear in mind, particularly here, is aspect. Are you facing north or south? If you're facing south, that's a nice place to be. Southwest. It can cause issues, of course, in really hot, dry summers, we'll talk about later. But a lot of stuff here is in shade. I have shaded areas in my garden. You wouldn't believe it on a day like this, but this is the back of my garden that I've created, and I paved it, and containers in shaded areas can be moved. And it's obviously getting the right plants. You can see lots of hostas there, People say, oh, hostas, slugs get them. They don't really, with easy management, which I'm happy to talk to people about. It will work. So there are always plans for north-facing areas. I don't like north-facing areas because they're cooler. There's more moss in your lawn. There's more algae on your path, and you've got a limited choice of plants, to be honest. But it can still look pretty good. I'll show you a shaded area. It's full of sun. Sorry about that. But trust me, it is shaded for many parts of the day. The other problem of a coastal area is salt. Now, salt has a big problem in the soil because the sodium breaks the soil down. It means that roots don't take up nutrients quite so easily and quite so well. It allows the soil to be leached. The nutrients are washed out of the soil. The answer to that, of course, is choosing the right plants. There are plants that will grow. If you don't want to spend lots of money on compost, which, let's be honest, you've got to be in queue these days, and you pick up a 30-litre bag of compost, which goes absolutely nowhere, and it costs you £6, if you're lucky. Go to a Wenny garden centre, it costs you even more. Sorry if there's anybody who's just true. Now, you can tell, if you're looking particularly, this is a little aside really, you probably know this, any plant with a silver underside is salt tolerant. Okay? And that's why you will see in hedgerows in Ogmore and people's hedges, if you look at certain plants, right, you will find the underside of the leaf is that silvery colour, and that means it's salt tolerant. The other thing that's salt tolerant is grasses. All grass is salt tolerant. Okay, some better than others, but all grass is salt tolerant. So if you look for those, and those salts, of course, are carried on winds. Very strong. You don't need me to tell you about that. Okay, the winds here. If we went back a couple of pictures, I won't, but in that one I showed you my back garden was an olive tree, a standard olive tree. I bought it a year after we arrived as a treat to myself because I'd always wanted an olive. So I went to home base as it was then, and they delivered me this olive. It wasn't hugely expensive, I paid about £80, which is more than enough. And I put it outside the front of mine. If you know where I live, the bottom of Somerset View, the house is quite flat. And I wanted to break up the wall, so I put this olive there. And about 3 or 4 days later, we'd had a storm, and I came out the front door, and I thought, what's all this? In the driveway, tiny little leaves. And I looked at the olive, and there were about, I could have counted on the fingers of 2 hands the number of leaves that were left on the olive. I put it in the wind, but it wasn't just the wind, it was the way the wind had hit the wall and created this turbulence. You'll all have experienced this, I'm certain. So I learned a massive lesson from that. So windbreaks are not always essential, but they're very useful. This is a hit and miss windbreak. What you need is a permeable windbreak. Now you can create that with that sort of expensive thing, or you can go for hedges. This is Escalonia. This is all over Ogmore. You've probably seen this, and this creates a beautiful hedge. There's a nice example, it's the top of Brigadon Hill, and there are several others. And the beauty of Escalonia is that it flowers for several months of the year. Besides, the leaves will stay waxy and bright and pretty well luminous most of the year. So it's a nice plant. You could also go for this, which is all over Merthyr Mawr Sandings. This is sea buckthorn. This is a tremendous windbreak, but you won't find any on the bank because if you fell into that, you'd need to go to A&E. It is seriously deadly. And that's a bit of a problem on Merthyr Mawr at the moment. They're now beginning to take it out. They put it in to obviously stop the erosion there. I've actually got some in front of my house, which I have to be really careful with and keep back off the pavement because it can be a bit of a problem. But the point I'm making is that it is part of what you might call a permeable windbreak. The wind needs to get through, but it needs to be greatly reduced. Okay, so that brings me on to what plants do we need? Because the answer to all these challenges, excuse me a minute. When I was teaching, I never needed this. I was used to talking. No, I'm not. Okay. What do we want from our gardens? We want shape, architecture, we want a bit of movement, and we want colour. We want all those things in our garden, really, if you're a keen gardener and you like gardens. So here's some few plants which I'm going to whip through pretty quickly, which will all be good, suitable in an area such as this. This one, you know, this is cordyline, they're all over Ogmore. This is a nice example. They pretty much stay like that. Tips sometimes get a bit burnt, but it's pretty good. This is Phormium, New Zealand flax. It's really tough. I've got one in the front of my garden. There are now several on the bank, which will grow and grow. And they stay in clumps. They don't tend to spread, so they're not thuggish. That's another Phormium. This is Phormium Jester, because Phormiums come in a range of colours, and you'll see. Beware the coloured ones, they're not quite as hardy as New Zealand flax, but they do a nice job and they give a nice structure, they move in the wind. And this one, I planted 4 of these down in the garden at the bottom of Craigerois. You may know that can work at the very bottom, it's like gardening on the beach down there, okay? This is Yucca rostrata, very nice if you can keep it like that. There's also some really nice examples of that in that new section of housing down on Craigerois Avenue. Very, very nice examples, and it looks really nice, very spectacular, but it's not cheap. Now, my favourite for coastal areas are grasses. As I've already said, all grasses are wind tolerant, but the beauty of grass, of course, for me, is the movement it gives you. I love that movement in the garden and sway, either if it's gentle breeze. Doesn't need a gentle breeze to move some of these little stiper grasses, the one in the corner there, they'll just move in the most gentle way, or if it's howling, they just look nice. I just like that sort of movement. Grasses come in a variety, they're not just sort of straw-like grasses, like Callimacrostis and those. You've got coloured grasses as well, so they can add not just form, and they also act as a good windbreak, the grasses. Now, another one of these inspirational pictures. Anybody know what that is? You do know, because it's all over Ogmore. But it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, because I've got one eye on the clock. It's tamarisk. Okay? Now, tamarisk is a wonderful plant for coastal areas. It'll grow on absolutely anything. This is a beach in Kos in Greece. It's just growing on the sand there. And I'm showing you this one and the next one. That's grown on scrubland somewhere in some semi-arid area. And look at it, it's a tree. Now, if kept in its natural state, if you buy a tamarisk, and they're quite cheap to buy, they're fabulous windbreaks, so you can grow them as a bush, they come as a bush. But if you find a centre, and you grow them as a standard, okay, you know what I mean by a standard, you keep cutting the leaves off as you go up. The trunk thickens and it turns into a tree. And there's a lovely example of that, again on the same garden I was talking about. I planted one at the bottom of Craigerois Avenue, and I've done exactly that to it. It's right by their back gate as you go down. If you walk down the bottom of Craigerois, look to your left, you'll see it. And it's a tamarisk tree, and it just looks fabulous. I mean, it laughs at the wind. It comes out in a lovely pink feathery flower in the summer. You'll know it, you'll see it as a hedge. There's one, I can't think where I am, up here before you get to T Gwyn, you know, where Len Williams lives. He's got lots over his hedge there, but Len keeps them as a hedge. You've got that option as a windbreak hedge, or you could turn it into a tree. I just love tamarisk, I just think they're wonderful. There it is, grows anywhere. Right, it's another inspirational picture for me. This is lovely. This is Dungeness in Kent. There's Dungeness Nuclear Power Station in the background. Try and ignore that. Look in the front. But the reason I'm showing you that is because we're going to go into colour now. Okay, and you can create colour even on the worst soils. Now these gardens have nothing done to them. If you look at the background, you can see the natural scrub that's growing there because it's just shingle and sand. There's no compost or decent soil even. But I wanted to show you that because of the architectural pieces they've put in. You know, and down on the bank I've used pots, I've used driftwood, various things you'll see in a minute to try and break the area up and make it a little more interesting, and little marine, little I don't know what you call those little marine artefacts that look nice in coastal areas. And last inspirational picture, that might be the last. We're going into colour. That's a coastal garden somewhere, don't know where, but what a lovely garden that is. Right on the coast, as you can see. Protected a little bit with that wall. Walls cause problems, by the way, because they do cause turbulence, okay? So be a little bit careful if you ever want to grow something next to a wall, particularly on aspect. Seek a little bit of advice, because some of your plants can suffer from that. But look at all those there. You've got lavenders, you've got iris, you've got gaura, geum I can see, euphorbia. All the plants that are on the bank, actually. Right, I'm going to whiz through these now. What plants are suitable? They're all familiar to you, or most of them will be familiar to you. There's Crocosmia, which when I start, a quick aside, when I started doing the bank, I had a letter from the Vale of Glamorgan, the only time they've ever been interested in the bank, telling me that I was breaking the law by growing Crocosmia or Montbretia on the bank. I'd like to have known how they knew that, really, but they did. Because it's one of those plants you have to be environmentally aware. They call it a thug, and you're not supposed to dump Montbretia anyway. If you took it out and put it, dump it behind a hedgerow somewhere, you could be in trouble because it is a spreader. Well, I wanted spreaders for the bank. That's exactly what we want. It was massive. When I started doing this in September 23, it was daunting seeing all that in front of me, and I thought, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Anyway, I got told off for dumping it, and I wrote back to them. And I said, well, if you think I'm dumping plants on the bank, you need to come down and have a look, because I'm actually creating a garden, so I'm a little bit insulted that you think I'm just dumping plants. I never heard from them again. This is my favourite Crocosmia. This is the red one. It goes about that tall. It's called Lucifer. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's scarlet red. If you know Llanwrch Vineyard, have you ever been there? Llanwrch Vineyard is full of this around the car park area, absolutely stunning in the summer. My favourite lavender grows anywhere, right? So some really rough patches down on the bank, which you'll see in a minute. Lavender, no problem. Doesn't need good soil. Well, the first one, that's English lavender Hidcote. This is English lavender Munstead. Don't go for French lavender. That is not particularly hardy, doesn't like the wind, probably wouldn't survive a winter. This is Hebe. Yeah. Sedum. Sedum is a succulent. It'll come to, you look at the thick leaves. I mean, I'm probably telling some of you things you know, sorry. But again, drought tolerant, and you can tell that from the leaf. Thick leaf, holds its own moisture. Hemorrhocalis or daylily will flower for months, and it comes in a massive variety of colours and variegated colours, you can see. And another one like that is, I haven't got a picture of it, but Alstroemeria I grew last year just as a sort of trial, because somebody gave me, came fantastically well, really in quite an exposed place. So Alstroemeria, if you know that, you see them as cut flowers a lot, don't you, in Tesco's and all those. There we are. Agapanthus, white agapanthus and purple agapanthus, and I've had lots of lovely agapanthus. Wendy's given me some and lots of others donated on the bank, and again they laugh at the wind. It's the plant they say thrives on neglect. I'm not sure I fully agree with that. It grows on neglect, but like all plants, they do need a little bit of TLC from time to time, and to say it thrives on neglect is probably not quite accurate. It grows on neglect, but it thrives when you look after it. Papaver poppies, absolutely hundreds of papaver poppies now coming on the bank, because once you've got these, you've got them forever, okay? As you know, particularly in the way the wind spreads seeds around here. Another favourite of mine will grow on gravel. This is cornflower, right, Centauri. It will grow on absolutely anything. You'll see some in a minute. And this, don't underestimate this, this is Achillea. And again, it comes in so many different colours. My favourite is a terracotta colour, actually, really subtle, really, really nice. But it's nice and grown next to cornflowers. You'll see shortly how nice it actually looks. There's a yellow Achillea in the background. And my absolute favourite plant of all, if I had to look at one last flower before I leave, it would be this. This is Japanese anemone. It is a stunning plant. It's abundant of flowers. It'll grow anywhere. I just love the shape and the form, and you know, things do things for us sometimes, don't they? That does something for me. I can't always explain it. Right, and the final flower I'm going to recommend is a range of succulents. Now this one, a lot of people don't know this one, and I saw it first of all when I went on holiday some years ago to the Algarve in Portugal, and it was growing on the cliffs there in really poor soil. I don't even know how it managed to stay on there, to be honest. And it comes in huge. The one I saw in the Algarve was an orange one, big flower. It's a succulent again. You can see the thick leaves that hold their water, and their flowers are absolutely glow. They glow in the sun. They're absolutely stunning. And you've only got to break a piece. If I was to break a piece of that off, literally anywhere, break a piece off, take the lower leaves off, put it in some compost, I will guarantee you, I'll put my mortgage on it, that would grow.
What's it called?
It's called Lampranthes. It's a relation to Mesembryanthemum, which we tend to call them over here, but it's much hardier, tougher. I'm happy to discuss all this with anybody at the end, or give a list, either through Jenny or whatever, of some of the plants you might be interested in. It's Lampranthes. It's absolutely well worth. There's plenty of them on the bank. You'll see them in the summer. In fact, some of them are coming out now, to be honest. The orange one is the early ones coming out. Keep your eyes on that. And this one, there's the red Lampranthes there in front, but in the background there, on that side, you've got a plant that I'm longing to get. If we ever get any funding, I'm going to get one. For the bank, it's a bottle brush. And they are just so fantastic. They would grow down there, and it gives that sort of semi-tropical feel, which somebody said to me the other day, actually walking past, and they said, "This garden looks tropical." Interesting, isn't it? Nice, thank you. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Have a look. Remember it?
Yeah.
That's what it was like when the builders left. Stone, weed, everything was there. Builders' materials. I got a lovely hammer, actually. Beautiful. I took it home, cleaned it up. Honestly, it was fantastic. And then, around about 2021, I think it was, the committee got a company in to come and start to shape it. And they did. They terraced it, basically. They put it into two halves that you can see today. And they planted 120 gorse bushes on it, which you can see them dotted around. Those are gorse bushes. They covered the rocks. They didn't shift any of the rock. They just put tons and tons and tons and tons of soil on top of it. They didn't pull any weeds out. As you can see, all the soil went on top. So what happened was, can you see that yet? So what happened was, all that bramble and bindweed and nettle and ground elder, that's a devil that is, all there, different types of grasses, and plus the rocks, and it just overgrew again. And that was, and then round about it was exactly September 2023, Hugh, who's got the cafe, they'd opened about 2 or 3 months, and I said to Hugh, that lawn area you got at the front, Hugh, I just said to him, you cut that, Hugh, it'd look really nice when you cut that, and have some seats outside. Well, I haven't got time, he said, so I said, well, I'll bring my mower down Saturday morning. So I cut the grass for him, and then I thought, well, you can't have a lawn unless you put a nice edge on. You've got to have a nice edge. It's all visual. Gardening's an art form, isn't it? It's visual. I could describe the Mona Lisa to you now if you've never seen it, and you wouldn't have a clue, would you, what it looked like? You've got to see it. And gardens, for me, are a little bit like that. So that's the way it looks sort of now. That was last year. And you can see what I mean now about the slope, can't you? how the slope enhances the look of the garden. You know, you see the tall stuff on top, but you also see some tall stuff at the bottom, but you can see stuff running through it. That bottom bank, the lower area there, I had to build that wall, that retaining wall, because it was just collapsing in front of the lawned area. Is my favourite bit, actually. I'll come to that in a minute. I just, all the stone that you saw earlier, I was just digging out huge amounts of stone. So rather than shift it up behind, which was backbreaking, I thought, well, you know, I'm going to need to build a wall. So I built the wall there, and then people kept giving me plants, which was great, because it wouldn't be a garden, would it, without the plants that the community have given. Here we are. It's one of my favourite views. I've even allowed, you'll have to excuse me, did we say about growing out? I never planted that. That's just a natural thing that's come through. It's like a chamomile type grass. So I left it last year. Little artifacts. I'll tell you a funny story. Somebody came running out of the cafe when I was down there one day last year. These have been there about 6 months. And somebody came running out, John, have you seen? Oh, somebody smashed your pot. I said, which one? Which pot? Oh, the purple one. I said, oh no, is it in bits? Yes, in 2 halves. This looked at me, I said, who did that then? She was aghast when I said it was me. I said I did it on purpose. The reason I did it was people were walking up there actually and crushing all the little crocuses that Ron bought. So that's why I put that there. Colour all year round is nice, isn't it? You know, that's the way it looks last year. Looking to look like that now as well. Okay, so if you haven't been down, have a look at the Davies. Next week or so they should be there. Right, this is the plant I haven't mentioned yet. Okay, you need to make a note of this one. This is the best plant you could get for a coastal area. If you look at the grass in front, you'll have some idea when this picture was taken. That's the grass on the lawn bit, and it's dead. This was last June, July, when we had that, was it 6 weeks of drought? And look how fresh that plant looks. Because we have to think now as well, the climate is definitely changing, regardless of what Mr. Trump says, the climate is changing. And I think we need to be looking at more drought-tolerant plants, particularly if you're here, where you've got poor soils and you're on a slope. If you can create your own drought conditions in a week here, it could rain on Saturday, and you think, oh, the garden's fine. By Thursday, if you've had sun from Sunday, and you're gardening on a slope, on a garden with poor soils, you're creating your own drought conditions. You cannot overwater a bank. I treat a bank like nature's hanging baskets. You know, you just cannot get enough water onto a bank, believe me. You know, I've had people try to come and help me. How much water shall I give? Well, I say, how long have you got? You just stand there all day if you want. You know, you cannot overwater. That's Gaura. It's a prairie plant. Grows on the prairie in North America. Beautiful. Absolutely stunning. There'll be more of that on the bank this year. There's your cornflower and achillea together on the worst part of the bank, which is down the front. You see those little don't park here posts. Cornflower, those cornflowers are still in flower now. They've flowered all through the winter. Incredible, isn't it? I wouldn't have guessed that they would do that, so I learn all the time. Shasta daisy, it's a thug, right? If you've got some in your garden, it'll run everywhere. But again, I quite like it on the bank because I had a lot of space to fill. And now I'm taking some of it out. Who would have thought that, you know, 2 years on, I was actually taking plants out of this, what I used to say to people, I'm never going to get enough plants to go on this. You know, they're growing pretty well. And another plant I haven't mentioned to you, you need to know it. This tall purple bobber here, just see it there, that's Verbena boniorensis. It is absolutely superb. It grows about that tall. It bobs and sways like grass. It grows beautifully in amongst grass, and it's one of those, once you've got it, you know, you'll have it forever. It's a free cedar. California poppy, in amongst the little poppy petals that I put there. Okay. Begonias. Jan and Dave Taylor gave me some begonias last year, and later, after this, they gave me some ageratum, blue ones, which you might remember if you were down, if you saw the bank. Canna lily in the background is the big bronze-leafed one. Canna lilies, fabulous down here, really nice. They'll stand up to the wind and they look great. Arum lily in the foreground. People give me 4 of those, and I said to them, it was in the first year, I said, they'll never grow. Never grow on the bank. I was so desperate for plants, I put them in. And there they are. It's soft-leafed, and I thought they'd be ripped apart. Isn't nature wonderful? There we are. Marigolds. Now, marigolds have been the mainstay of the bank for the last 2 years. I threw a packet of seeds down in, I think it was spring 24, and they've just spread. You can see Iris Alandica in the front, Centauri in the back, and the marigolds in the front. Arum lily at the top, big shrubs of mallow. There's the pot somebody broke. You wait till I get my hands on them. People give me artifacts all the time. Chris Jones down the way, he said, I've got a bird bath, can you do anything with it? I said, well, it won't be big enough for me, Chris, but put it on. I've got one at home, thanks. So, you know, amazing, with just a few pebbles around there. I haven't seen any birds in it, but that's not the point, is it? And it just looks nice, placed up. Pot on the bank there, pebbles. Pansy spilling out of a pot. And there we are. Nice edge. The secret of keeping a nice garden, by the way, also is little and often. Okay? I go down there. Now in the winter, if the weather is nice, I'll spend an hour most down there. In the summer, it can come up to 2 hours sometimes if I'm really enjoying myself. And I try and keep on top. This was last week. You won't believe it from the weather, but it was one morning last week. And a nice edge along the front, weeds out, and it looks great, doesn't it? It doesn't need colour to look nice. I think that looks very nice. And a big thank you again. Last year we had the crowdfunding going with the greenhouse, and I've got the greenhouse now. So for those of you here that donated, thank you very, very much. Put the greenhouse up last August. It doesn't look like that now. It's full of seedlings now that have come on. So if you're ever down there, pop your head round the back. It's round behind the black. It's round behind the black storage hut that went up, because we couldn't have put a greenhouse there before. There was nowhere to put it. Once they put that black storage shed up, it was the perfect spot. It was overgrown. It was where I used to throw all the rubbish. We cleared that, put a concrete floor on, and there it is. There we are. Just to prove we are environmentally friendly, I'm trying to gather my own water. And my final slide, I'm always looking to the future, me, and I get inspiration everywhere I go. I went to Dubai last year, and I'm always seeking out gardens wherever I go, right? And I come back with ideas. And this wonderful garden there, I thought, oh, look what they've done with that slope.
Is it the Miracle Gardens?
You've been there. The Miracle Garden in Dubai, absolutely. And that's a working clock. And I said to Anita, I said, I might do that.
Not on that scale, no.
So there we are. What a good innovative use of a slope. I think that might be the last picture. Yeah, oh yeah, it is. Don't feel like that about your garden.
Yeah.
There we are.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
John, that's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I mean, I don't know if there's another book coming. We're looking forward to the list, all those plants. I couldn't write them down fast enough.
No.
Totally brilliant. And I'm sure we're all going to go back and look at our little plots and our pots, and we're going to be incredibly inspired. And John earlier on was saying that if anybody wants to go down, and of course I think this is how you got to know half the village, is that people have wandered down and they've chatted to John, and if you want to volunteer you could just go and just join him for a bit. But John also was saying if anybody wants to come down, I could give a tour. So I was chatting to Wendy and to John and suggesting that maybe when it comes to the summer, when this is all in full flower and we get some lovely settled weather and we're not meeting for coffee and cakes, then Wendy and John will work out a time when perhaps there's a suggestion for just meeting down there for a coffee and having a tour with John. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
Who's selling the tickets?
No, it's community garden, it's all free. We don't charge.
And John, what we want to do is give you a little donation here. I'm going to tell you what this is. It's a beautiful card done by Janice Taylor. It says that on the back of the card. One of her decoupage ones, which is a lovely gardening one, but also a £50 voucher. And I was just immediately thinking about a bottle brush, because you said if you had one. Do you think you could get a bottle brush? Or?
I will get a bottle brush in the spring.
Right.
I'll get a really nice one for that. So, and I'll let you know when it goes on. There is a shrub that has not survived up on the bank actually. I had to cut it out from underneath somebody's wall with an axe. And I was really dubious about it, and it grew for a couple of months, so it stayed alive and it died. So the bottle brush will be its perfect replacement. Thank you.
Wonderful. And John is not in any kind of hurry, so afterwards I dare say you're going to be inundated. Everyone's going to come, and we have a real interest in that list, I think, if it
I'll
exists.
pass the list on to you so everybody can see.
Totally brilliant. I'm going to let John mix and mingle and answer lots of questions, but thank you so much. And in a moment, I'm going to give you a big round of applause. So let's do that first.